Welcome to tonight's panel for the CME Winter Media Summit. My name is Sean Mannion. I am the manager of media education at the New York City Center for Media Education at Manhattan Neighborhood Network. And New York City Center for Media Education, CME as we call it, is the education arm of Manhattan Neighborhood Network. We offer workshops in video editing, in Unreal Engine 3D, filmmaking, and television studio production, and much more. Right here in Manhattan, we have two locations, El Barrio Firehouse on 104th Street, and where we are right now in Hudson Yards, 38th Street and 10th Avenue. So among the classes that we have, very relevant for tonight, if you are interested in Unreal Engine, if you're interested in virtual production tools in general, we have three classes coming up. We have Virtual Production Essentials, we have Unreal Engine Essentials, and we have Blender Essentials, all of which are coming up in March. I'll talk a little bit more about those coming up soon, but that's not really what we're here. I'm not really here for me to talk about our workshops. What we are here for is the Let's Get Unreal panel for this year's CME Winter Summit. And we have with us tonight, as for part of the panel, we have Anthony Coithra. I apologize.
It's close. That's close.
Luke Zemecki and Marcela Bragagnolo.
Yeah, Bragagnolo, thank you.
Bragagnolo. And they are all members of Unreal's Animation Fellowship Program. Now, before we learn all about them, and we're going to get to know them and the projects that they've done for this Unreal Animation Fellowship, I wanted to talk very briefly about what Unreal Engine is for those of you who may not be familiar with it, which I think it's quite a few folks. There's a big community on Unreal Engine, but there's a much larger media makers community out there in the world. So Unreal Engine is actually a development tool that it was developed in the 1990s to create the video game, the computer game Unreal and Unreal Tournament. Since then, it's gotten adopted by a lot of different media makers and in film and television, and it started to get used today in everything from big budget action films like The Batman to Star Wars as The Mandalorian to World Cup soccer news coverage, lots of sports coverage. ESPN is using it for a lot for programs, and the animation
Fallout series, right?
And the Fallout series. And so it's very widely being used in animation and a lot of different things. And because it offers a really versatile tool set, and as of a few years ago, it's free. It's free to download. So it's very, very accessible. So it's really grown, and it's becoming a bigger part of the media making community. And the Unreal Animation Fellowship is a program from Epic Games, which creates Unreal, that these three fine folks are part of. And I'm just going to read their description of it, which is: the Unreal Fellowship is a 30-day intensive blended learning experience designed to help experienced industry professionals in film, animation, and VFX learn Unreal Engine, develop a strong command of state-of-the-art virtual production tools, and foster the next generation of teams in the emerging field of real-time production. So that's just a little bit of context for y'all. A little bit more context for you is that we're using Unreal right now. So the four of us, we're just sitting in front of a big green screen. We've got some green floor here. But what you see, that room, was created in Unreal Engine by one of our staff members here.
I can see that bicycle right there.
Yeah.
Right there. Maybe it's there.
Selling the illusion.
I think I'm covering it up.
That's what you look for from panels. The people who will help you sell the illusion. But you're experiencing what we can do with Unreal right now.
Yeah.
in this virtual production space that we have here at our 38th Street. location. So that's just a bit of like the larger context. So now we're going to introduce our panelists. But for those of you at home, if you have questions, you can add them to the chat. We'll get to them towards the end of the night. If you don't see the chat, there should be a little logo there that says watch on YouTube. Click on that. You're going to end up at YouTube. There's a chat. Leave your questions there. We will get to them. So let's start with Anthony. So Anthony Coithra is a filmmaker and 3D artist based in Brooklyn. He makes animated short films, including the viral hit Rogue Squadron fan film. He's an Unreal Fellow, and some of his shorts have screened in festivals around the world. And we are going to show a little demo video of his work. Let's go ahead and roll that.
Otherwise, I suggest you put on a weapon and stand opposed. Either way, I don't give a damn what you think you are entitled to. I am Iron Man. The suit and I are one.
And so that a great example of a wide variety of different techniques there. And I think we'll want to get into a lot of that. And hopefully those of you at home will have questions for it. We also have here with us Luke. And Luke is an Unreal Engine technical director that specializes in corporate broadcasts and live virtual production. At Steady Now Productions, he currently utilizes tools such as the Unreal Engine, Aximetry, and anti-latency to produce live camera-tracked virtual events. His technical acumen spans a range of platforms and technologies, including broadcast video switchers, networking, and the Unreal Engine, which he leveraged extensively during his participation in the Unreal Engine Fellowship. His final project in the program showcases his expertise in world building. So let's take a look at a sample from Luke's final project. Very, very cool. I'm very into the effects that you have there, and I think think I may have some questions for you here and later about some of that, even afterwards. And then we also have Marcela Bragagnolo, New York-based digital media creator from Argentina. She merges her dance background with cutting-edge technologies. Her diverse portfolio spans 3D mapping projections, dance motion capture, and animation for film, showcasing her expertise in 3D animation and Unreal Engine. Let's take a look at what Marcela has been working on. Very, very cool. One of the things that I think is exciting about the group of folks that we have here is the spread of different kinds of work you're doing. There's a lot of similarities, obviously, but there's also kind of a wide range of kind of closer to a little bit more traditional animation. You've got a lot of, you've got your world designing and then the motion capture. And I think it's a really good example of like the spread of things that you can do leveraging this tool set. So, and clearly what can be done in this fellowship. So I guess my first question for the group of you, and I think we'll start with Luke with this question and then each of you can answer it, is what drew you to the Unreal Animation Fellowship in the first place? Like what made you say, like, I'm going for that?
Oh, man. Well, I actually found out about it through somebody I met at Epic Games. So I had been messing with the Unreal Engine a little bit beforehand, and I wasn't really in this industry yet, but then I found out about it and then I applied to it and I got in, and oh my goodness, I can't believe I got in, because I was working with people that were like, yeah, I worked on Star Wars and I worked on Marvel movies, and I'm just sitting here like, what? Why am I here? But no, I got a ton out of it. I did the world building fellowship. There's a couple different ones. I think you did the animation one.
We did
right?
the animation one.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of my story with it.
Okay, cool. And
very similar. I had a very different job for a long time, and I quit it 2 years ago to start making animation because I'd always wanted to. Unreal was a big part of why I decided to do that, because it suddenly seemed, if not practical, possible for an indie animated filmmaker to exist and to make stuff in a reasonable schedule. And so when I started messing with it, I started following everything to do with Unreal and heard about the fellowship. I was like, this is an incredibly long shot. I'm a newbie. Like, there's no way they'll take me, but I'm going to apply anyway. And so I applied, and then I got in, and exactly like Luke is describing it, I was like, so your supervisor is going to be the guy that was lead animator on the new Transformers movie, and the people in your team are at ILM, at DreamWorks. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Uh.
And yes, it was very much of like, I was like, I'm just gonna hang out and learn. And so, which is what I did. It was amazing. It was fantastic. Yeah.
And Marcel.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was just, it was like a family also, no, because we were learning so much. We started at 10 in the morning, and then until 6 o'clock, just lectures and learning. And then we have to animate. We have to produce in 3 weeks a 15 seconds animation. So we were all learning at the same time. And it's like you never cannot all the spectrum of Unreal Engine. It's like somebody's know more about world building, some more about motion capture, some more about keyframing. And so we have this communication through Slack or through meetings in which everybody help each other. It was really fantastic. Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
honestly my favorite part of the whole
Yeah,
thing, because
yeah.
like if you think about people making animation, that's not a huge
Mhm.
group or community. You
Yeah.
think about people making animation in Unreal, like that's a small segment
Yes.
of that. And so each time you're talking to people, you're like, oh, you're kind of doing what I'm doing, but not exactly. And this was everybody doing it
Yeah.
at the highest level. And so it was, for me, like a real like found my people kind of moment. It was great.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Oh, were you gonna?
I was just agreeing.
It says, I mean, and I think one of the things that it sounds like it really highlighted is the collaborative
Yeah.
nature of working in these kinds of programs. That's and you get to meet some of the people working at the top of the game, who are that's fantastic. So one of the other things that I think we saw a little bit of it in certainly Marcella's and yours as well, we saw that you're using some other tools other than Unreal Engine. So I think I'm certainly curious. I'm sure folks at home are curious. Beyond Unreal, what are some of the tools that you're using for your work? Like maybe some that we might expect, or maybe even if there's some things that are unexpected. Let's start with you, Michelle.
Yeah, it's a funny story because I've been working with Maya animation, 3D animation, like for 14 years, a lot. And so I feel like it is my security blanket. And when I started the fellowship, the first thing I did my MetaHuman. And before we have all these lectures about retargeting inside, and so it was in the second week. In the first week, I just right away put everything in Maya. And then I started to motion editing everything in Maya the first month. And then Gabriel was the mentor, said, why are you doing that in Maya? So you know that you can do that in Unreal. And so in the second week, we got all these classes about targeting, motion editing in Unreal and everything. And it was fantastic because I found much more easy, and a lot of things that I used to work around in Maya, it was just like a constraint, one button there. And so I learned a lot how to speed my pipeline in animation. Yeah,
that's very interesting. So you already had experience doing this with Maya and with basically kind of mapping data. And I'm just kind of saying this to kind of give a little context for anybody at home who isn't as familiar with like retargeting. It's when you use like motion capture, you need to take that raw data of somebody moving around in the mocap suit and then send that into the application so that it can map it to the
avatar.
To the avatar. And so you already were doing that in Maya, and then you started doing it the same way in the Unreal thing, and they said, well,
yeah. And also I used to, because I used animate with pen also, traditional animation. So normally what I use to use the grease pencil and then draw all up on top of Maya just to make all my motion editing after. And somebody's saying, why are you doing that in Maya? Because there are plugins that you can do in Unreal Engine. So and it's free.
Yeah. And Luke, how about you?
Tools wise, so that for the world building fellowship, that was all Unreal.
Okay.
That was totally stuff off the marketplace, just Megascans, Quixel Megascans, just pulling in as much stuff as I could from as many different places as I could, and then putting it just all in Unreal and building everything in Unreal, even the water and the floating furniture and the tornado, like totally Unreal. For work though, I use a program called Xsymmetry, which is like a thing that's on top of Unreal, because there's this weird thing in Unreal. There's a plugin called Composure that
Uh-huh.
is used, that you can use for like green screen, like getting people on a green screen and then comping them into this scene in real time.
Okay.
It's okay. Companies have taken Unreal and sort of built on top of it to solve this problem of, how do I get a person in Unreal live and make it look good? Like, give them reflections that are in real time, give them shadows that are in real time. And there's a ton of them. The one I just happened to use is called Xsymmetry. So yeah, that's kind of where I live a lot of the time.
Nice. Yeah. And and I think it's a good point as well, with the world building, is that Unreal already has this huge marketplace, and it has all of these tools built in, Quixel, where there's already free assets or even like inexpensive assets that people have made available.
Yeah.
You can just you can build a whole
Yeah.
world in there without having to leave.
Yeah, it's
So-
great. Yeah, there's so many different things on the marketplace, and a lot of the, like every Quixel thing I think is free.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's great.
So it's a great place to get started for people who are like, I don't have a bunch of money to get going with this. So if you can run Unreal, you can put that out there. And then Anthony.
So I had kind of the opposite experience of what you, because I never really learned Maya at all. Like I can do the very basics with it, but I never got good at it at all. And I learned to animate in Unreal. And so, because it's relatively recent, Unreal kind of put out a bunch of animation tools, and which they've been developing in a really smart way. And so I learned to animate inside of Unreal, which is, like, I think weird, like it's pretty unusual or strange. But outside of that, the other parts of my workflow, I use Blender primarily as a DCC for like geometry stuff. I don't model from scratch, I'm just not good enough. But I edit a bunch of existing models if I need to like add topology or whatever, that kind of rig something. And then I use Substance for textures and materials, and then Photoshop for hand painting wherever that's necessary. More recently, outside of, I think that's kind of the basic. You use Marvelous a bunch. We were just talking about that for plot
Talking
sim
about
and
that
stuff
before
like that.
the show.
Which is incredible. I really need to get into that. Like the stuff you're doing with it is all the clot simulation and things like that. It looks amazing. And so, yeah, I definitely want to learn that soon. And then outside of that, I think the only other thing that I've started doing recently is using AI tools for like very specific things. So for example, in the video for like face textures, you can generate an image in, like I did it in Midjourney, and then projection map that onto the model and then hand paint it to make it fit and fix. So because I'm not a good texture artist, this is a hack for me to like get there.
Okay.
And so things like that.
That's very cool. And you mentioned Blender, which is also another
Also free.
free tool that's out there.
We were just talking about that. I'm trying to get all the paid stuff out of my.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I finally got rid of Adobe.
Nice.
It's out of my life.
Good for you.
It's amazing the open source, the free software that's available. That's incredibly professional now.
It blows my mind that Blender and Unreal are free.
Yeah.
Like,
It's insane.
So we've been talking about a couple of different programs. We talked about Unreal, and I think you guys might have touched on this a little bit already, but what would you say are the advantages that Unreal Engine is offering for what you do? So for animation, for mocap animation stuff, for broadcast, and let's start with you, Andy.
Sure. The single biggest thing is like what everybody talks about with Unreal. It's just it's real time, right? I mean, that's the single big thing. So for me, I'm a storyteller, I'm a filmmaker. Like I wanted to be able to make short films in 3D, and the traditional workflow for that is, hit render and then wait 24 hours, and then you see someone's eyeballs pointing the wrong way, and then you have to do the whole thing over again. It's just simply not practical for an indie like me.
Yeah.
Whereas in Unreal, everything looks like it's going to look in real time, and so your iteration is incredibly fast. And then, especially for someone that isn't like classically educated, like I haven't gone to animation school, you learn so fast when it's real time because you can just like move a slider and see what happens. And so your learning curve is accelerated so fast because it's Unreal. And then the third thing is just it's the hub for everything. Like I use it for making films, and so it functions as a hub. It's where I put all of my rigged assets, everything is named, my sequences are in there. I don't use it for editorial, so I use it basically like camera. So I like render footage and then assemble that in Resolve. It does have a bunch of editorial tools where you can do like sequences and subsequences and all of that kind of stuff. Like if you have a wildly powerful computer, like I think that works better, but at my level, I find it more efficient to just render and stick it in Resolve. But real time is really the big thing. It's what everybody talks about, but it's once you start playing with it is when you really start to realize what a completely revolutionary workflow it is.
Yeah, and for the folks at home who are maybe less familiar with the concept of real time and traditional 3D animation, you do the animation in a way where it kind of looks like maybe clay or not quite
gray or
gray,
texture, not lit, no shadows, that kind of thing. So you kind of have to make a mental leap between like it's gonna look like this, it kind of looks like that, and then but you can do things like play blasts or whatever, or like Blender even has like a real-time renderer.
Yeah,
there are a lot of like everyone. This is kind of where things are going. Like everyone's trying to figure out real-time workflows because it is so superior.
Yeah, and it's so much faster. And then Unreal's kind of definitely one of the leading ones for that. Let's you.
Man, I don't want to steal real time, but
That's
like
it's
the
the
thing.
thing, it's the
That's the thing, right? I've been on set with directors before, and they're like, "Yeah, can we move this like hill or whatever over a little bit, or like, can we move the camera over a little bit, or you know?" And normally that would take a really long time, but for me, it's like, all right, there it goes.
And that's photorealistic. Like you're doing a photorealistic background. You're
Yeah.
like moving a hill at a completely different angle. It's
Yeah. What I really love recently though is it's a game engine, truly. So, you know, if I'm working with like a corporate client or something, and they're like, we want to see a graph in real time from this data set, from this API or whatever, then you can build a blueprint. You can pull it in. You can animate stuff in real time, like bar graphs or whatever you choose in real time to respond to like data that's just out there, right? So you can integrate it with whatever you want if you know a little bit of programming or blueprinting. So yeah, that's another really cool thing in there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think definitely like your point is well made as far as the fact that it is a tool for software development, for video game development, means that you can do so much more with it than a lot of other programs because it's built to program things. So it's just it's built. And that Blueprints, and so for those at home, Blueprints is a visual way of doing computer programming. It's basically just kind of a visualization of, I think it's C++, right?
Yeah.
So, or if you know C++, dive in and do C++.
Yeah, you can go into the engine code if you really, really want to.
So it's one of those tools. It does so many things. It can be so powerful. Sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming, but same question to you. Like, is the same advantage real time for you? Or
yeah, of course. Render time is when you have an animation render time, you don't have to wait so long for frame by frame. It's faster, but also that all that is motion capture is like speed the process of animating.
Yeah.
And facial animation is incredible because you just put the cell phone and you get lip syncs and facial animation, then you put it in the engine, and if you like to exaggerate or tweak it or change, on top of that you can edit and do whatever, like a point of departure only. And the other thing, the lighting and cinematography. Other programs, you have to wait. You change the light, you have to wait that everything recalibrated. And now it's very fast that you move the light. And then also for the point of view of cinematography, you can move cameras and you can try different shots and see what is look without, in a non-destructive way, and very, very easy to. So you have a little more of sense of your piece in a cinematographic way.
Yeah, absolutely.
With like real lenses and things like so.
Yeah,
Like,
Oh, yeah,
it's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
cinematographers actually take to it really fast because
Yes.
once they realize, oh, this is just like real life, but I can move everything much faster.
Mhm.
They take to it really, really fast. Like I've seen people like instantly make very cinematic looking shots because they have all of the expertise of how to do the artistic expertise of how to do it.
Yeah.
And there are natural, just digital analogs of everything they use on a daily basis. And lights, cameras, everything.
The other thing is you have a piece and you can repurpose this piece in different formats. So you can do a film, you can do an experience, you can just take the backdrop and do in virtual production with real life actors. So you have a piece of content and you can do a lot of experience. No?
Yeah. The same thing can then become 12 different other things.
Yes.
You can be a VR, it can be a traditional 2D film, it can be an AR experience, an augmented reality experience, all just with the same assets and the animation, and you just kind of repurpose.
I understand why Disney invest in Unreal Engine now.
If you're talking like cross-media, it makes a ton of sense.
Oh yeah, that's right. Disney recently just said, oh, we're going to dump a bunch of money into Unreal. I mean, they've been relying on it a lot for their, as I mentioned at the beginning, the Mandalorian, and the Star Wars shows, which is really
stagecraft.
Oh yeah.
They've been doing some interesting things. That's the first place I heard about any of this.
And I love that they like picked a character that's entirely reflective. So if you don't do it with real time, the amount of comping and green screen fixes you'd have to do with such a reflective character,
it
would be insane.
Yeah.
So his ship is all shiny, his suit is all shiny.
It's all just reflections. It's all just that. Yeah,
it would be a nightmare on green screen.
If we did it in the green screen room that we're not in, because obviously we're in this lovely wood panel floor and all that. It would be just green. It should just be green. So then we talked about the advantages of Unreal Engine. So for your fellowship projects, what were the parts that were most challenging for you, or maybe the newest thing, if it wasn't necessarily like super challenging, just like oh wow, like I've never done that before. So let's start with you.
My computer broke.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh no!
No, I was working in a laptop. I shouldn't. I was told that I shouldn't be working in a laptop, and everything was very good. And in the second week, when I started to put the fashion animations on top of the body animations, so my computer couldn't take it.
Oh, your computer just was like,
so
I
had
can't
to
do
go
this
run,
anymore.
and I couldn't find a computer. So finally, so it's a little bit of a stress. It was a stress about learning so much from 10 to 6. It was lectures one after the other, and so many new things, taking notes, and then after that, at 6 o'clock, I started animated because we have a project to give every week. So the rhythm.
Okay.
But I think I was like feel like wow all the time, because it's like every hour, every lecture, it was like I didn't know I couldn't do that. Like we have this lecture that in which they were teaching us how to rig inside Unreal Engine, how to move, puppeteer a dragon, and
I mean,
I was like,
it's
whoa,
so fast, the amount of stuff.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The thing I loved about this, the way they'd scheduled and planned it, though, was there was a lot of intense like learning and lectures and all of that stuff, and like labs and things like where you're learning, but you're also trying to work on your piece in the background while this is all happening. But they would start and end each day with either just like a hangout, so like you could get to know people, which Brian would host, or like drinks in the evening, right? Like that kind of thing. Or they'd have this incredible stable of guest speakers that they brought in to speak. So we had like, I don't know if you've seen like Voice in the Hollow is this amazing, incredible short film made with Unreal, so they had the filmmakers from that who were fellows from like several fellowships before who came in and spoke about that. There's like this very inspiring woman who's running like a YouTube channel for like STEM education for kids.
Oh yeah, she was doing all with blueprints.
Yeah,
and
Shazzy.
yeah.
Incredible. And so you had all these people who were applying all of the lessons that we were learning about in like, several years forward. Like, so you're showing you what's possible once you get good at it and once you learn properly how to use it, which is very inspiring.
Yeah. And was that what were your challenges for your project?
Oh, me is primarily that I'm not a good animator, and so like I said, the soup, or like the team lead for our group, was Tara Mathur, who was lead animator on the new Transformers movie, and so this guy's an incredibly experienced animator, and so I'd said I want like as detailed feedback as you can give, because I really want to learn. And so like every day he would like give me drawovers and everything like on my shot. And so I was able to like really push the character animation part of it, the hand keyed character animation part of it, which was something that I want to learn and hadn't had much training at. And so when you get these opportunities, like to learn from people at the top of their game, like you really have to make the most of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And yourself.
Yeah.
What were your challenges?
My challenge mainly was it was completely out of my comfort zone. Before this, I was a software engineer.
Okay.
For like medical record management software.
Okay.
Like
Very
completely different. I was like a software engineer that was just messing around with Unreal, and then eventually I wanted to work in video, so I managed to get into that, and then I figured out, or I got into the fellowship, and it was all just completely out of my comfort zone, right? So, I got into that, and I learned so much. Like you said, it was very intense. But they were like, you have to take off work for this. You cannot work during this. You will not be able to, and they're right.
It's a full-time thing.
Yeah, it's a full-time thing. It's a full-time thing, and then you do your project after the full-time thing.
So it's two full-time.
It's double time.
Yeah. And the world building one specifically, they threw us all a curveball at the beginning, because when world building, I imagine people that got in were like, I know exactly what I'm going to make. I already have it all planned out. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to like just do that for the entire thing. But at the beginning, the guy that created the fellowship was like, no, you're actually, here's this Dungeons and Dragons like Google sheet, and you're going to roll dice on each of these, and they were all just like adjectives and art styles and just different things that you all combine into this world. So at the end of that, you have like 15 words, and you're like, all right, make a world out of these words.
Oh wow!
Which is a classic Brian Pohl move. This is the guy.
The guy that
the
made
fellowship.
It.
Basically started the fellowship program. He's the warmest, sweetest guy you'll meet. Like he looks like Gandalf, and was kind of our godfather through the entire thing, and just such a wonderful person. Like we all love Brian.
Yeah. Brian, wonderful person.
He's starting a really cool new collective now, which people should stay tuned for.
It's an interesting thing to do to your students that I'm definitely not taking notes about doing myself. No, it's interesting because it really challenges you. Oh, you can't come in with a preconceived idea.
Yeah.
You're going to have to stretch. Which is great. It really kind of forces you into a space of like having to learn things that maybe you wouldn't have expected.
Mm-hmm.
So before we transition over to audience questions, so if you're in the audience there right now, you can put your questions in the chat on YouTube. Just go ahead and click on that watch on YouTube to get to the chat. Well, you guys type those questions in if you haven't done so already. I just want to mention a couple things. I mentioned at the top of this presentation, we have 3 virtual production related classes coming up in March. Starting next week, we have our Virtual Production Essentials class, which is right here in this room, right here in this studio. You're going to come in here. You'll see some of the tools that we're using right now and some of the tools that we're not using right now, including we have some motion capture system in here. We have our camera tracking system in here. And if you're just not sure what is virtual production, how is this relevant to anything, that's what that 3-hour workshop is for. It's just to kind of help answer some questions for you and demonstrate a little bit about what all of this is. Because honestly, I've spoken to a lot of professionals who are like, I don't know what you're talking about. Why are you saying virtual in production? Are you doing it on Zoom? No, we're not doing it on Zoom.
You couldn't do it on Zoom.
You could do it on Zoom.
Yeah.
But we're not. So we have that, and that is next Tuesday. And come join us. You can sign up on the website. Unreal Engine Essentials, which is our intro to Unreal class. It's designed for filmmakers. It's going to show you how to open it, how to place things in a world, how to move a camera around, how to export a video clip, and actually just kind of get you started on here's the tool set so that maybe you want to get into it. And then at the very end of the month, starting on March 27th, we have our Blender Essentials class, which shows you here are the basic tools for modeling in Blender. Tools for modeling in Blender. How do you render something? How do you add keyframes and make a little animation? They're not super in-depth classes. You're not going to end up having to give up your full-time job. They're in the evening. You come after work. And they'll just get you started on your journey with virtual production. So those are all coming up in March. The other thing I want to do before I get to your questions is I just want to do a couple of acknowledgments, because tonight is the result of a lot of people's work here at MNN and on the CME team. A lot of people put in a lot of hours and a lot of time. I want to make sure that we just go ahead and acknowledge them. First of all, I want to acknowledge the entire New York City Center for Media Education team who are in the control room right now, having to look at my face and listen to my voice so much tonight. Those poor people. But they put in a lot of work to make this look the way it does right now, to make last night's keynote presentation look the way that it did. Last night, Media Education Coordinator Jacob Fearing had put together the background that you saw if you watched that. If you don't, go look at the live stream after this. He put together a beautiful virtual set for that. It was a relatively simple shoot, but there was that. Tonight we've got a set that we're on built by Mark Minig, who's our newest member of the team. We've also got Deshaun Pretlow running the switcher right now, and he was running audio last night, and he has been integral into us getting all this stuff together and helping those of us like myself who are less used to the live production and the switcher get more comfortable in the control room. And we've got Cindy Candelario, who's been doing a lot of behind the scenes. She's running audio for us right now. And she's been doing a lot with working with us on the setup. And of course, we've got Tiffany Blunt, who is our director, who's been leading the charge on us doing anything in virtual. So in addition to them, there's the tech ops team at MNN, Seamus Rodriguez, Hector Pena, and Jordan West, who actually physically put this space together. And we got a lot of support from the production facilitation team at MNN and the director of access services, Greg Sutton. And we just want to thank all of those people. And now that I've vamped for a little bit, we're going to get to your questions. So first question from the audience we have is, any tips for transitioning from traditional film production to virtual production? Let's start with Marcella.
From film to, well, you will love the way that you move the cameras and set your shots. You're going to find that the setting of the cameras in Unreal, you can match the cameras, the real cameras. So a lot of things that is familiar to you, you're going to be able to transfer. You're going to see in the panels the same thing that you know already, but you virtually can choose and adjust in the same way that you're doing physically. So things are setting in a way that are familiar to you. Light, cameras, and you're going to use also all the knowledge of cinematography that you have. Where I am talking here.
Oh,
yeah, okay.
Yeah, any other tips for film production to virtual production, or even traditional TV production to virtual production?
I would say find a group of people to keep yourself accountable and to network, I guess. Like, in my instance, I did not come from traditional film into virtual production. I came from software engineering to virtual production. But you know, like as soon as I did the fellowship, I met so many great people and I learned so much, and I feel like that kind of jump started a lot of what I'm doing now.
Mhm.
So definitely, like, find your group, find your people, you know.
Absolutely. And any tips for people, maybe traditional animation to this?
I mean, yeah, from traditional animation, I feel the big thing is you can keep a lot of the same workflows like you were talking about. They've been smart about the way they've designed the animation workflows inside of Unreal to keep a lot of the things that are familiar. Everything just goes a lot faster and is significantly more flexible than you. And I think the kind of big kind of hurdle is that shift of mindset from like, I need to plan exactly what my framing is. I need to storyboard and match to exactly that. Like, you can play inside of Unreal so much.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, you're really missing out. Like, you can literally build an environment and then fly around and find your shot, as opposed to like plan something out and place the same 14 elements exactly where you want to. Traditional animation workflows are more like that. And so iteration and changing things is so much harder. And in Unreal, initially that's very scary because you have to kind of let go of like a kind of cherished workflow system that is safety. Like you were saying with Maya, right? You have to like let go of that.
Right.
And initially you kind of feel like, I can't feel the edges of the pool. I don't know what's going on. And then after a while, you're like, oh, this is actually so much better.
So what would you say is the hardest part about using or learning Unreal Engine? And we'll go ahead and start with you, Luke.
Using or learning Unreal Engine. Well, first off, buy like a 4080 graphics card. No, I'm joking. Man, well, we were talking about this a little bit before the show. Is you can do it's a game engine, so you can really just do anything you want. So what do? Right? Like you guys, you both do animation. I have no idea how to do animation at all. Like I'm pretty like world building, level design, live production stuff. But you can do animation in Unreal. So there's just all this different stuff that you can do. So I think maybe like picking one of those things and kind of diving deep on it is hard, because you can sort of do like everything basically.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
There's so much there. Marcella.
Yeah. So so you need a good computer. We are not going to lie. We have to be honest.
Need to put a little bit of investment there.
Yeah. So you need, but it's at the beginning just to learn the interface. But if you go into Epic Games, there is a nice course, your first hour in Unreal Engine, that is free. You can go at your own pace. And so then after that, one that you are very familiar with the interface, now that you can fly, right? And if you have any doubt or something or taking class, you can always go to the community, and there is a lot of support there. But I would say that, but it's like any other media software. You have the toolbar on top, you have the timeline, you have, and then you can switch. One tip will be, so go to the preference and switch the button, the mouse, something that is familiar to you, because that maybe can throw me up a little bit at the beginning. It was the same pan and zoom or rotation that I was used. And so, but I found out that I can go to the preference and just set in something that I was familiar, so I don't have to learn another mechanical with my hands.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's really true. So much muscle memory built into
At the beginning, where it's going.
Oh yeah.
And the default settings for many things are not what you would expect.
Oh yeah.
And so there are actually some of the earliest fellowship classes were like, here are the 20 settings to remember and to change and make your defaults if you're doing animation.
Oh my
So it's
gosh,
like,
yeah.
These are all the things
I
you should
totally
switch.
forgot about. Yeah.
So
I remember getting a PowerPoint slide of like 50 console variables that are like, these do not appear in the normal Unreal Engine settings, but you can change these settings in the console, and you should do that to make this look as good as possible.
for like render settings.
Yeah,
wow.
so there's
Yeah.
just this like hidden layer of tinkering that you have to do.
I mean, it
and-
goes back to what you were saying. There are so many rabbit holes. This
Yeah.
is the thing. It's like, and picking your rabbit holes is like the key to maintaining your sanity,
yeah,
because you can chase them all down, but you'll never get anything done.
yeah.
And so like picking and choosing was like, this is really key to what I'm trying to get done. This is a distraction, and like being ruthless about that is important.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. So let's we're just about out of time. So let's wrap it up with what is next for all of you. And let's start with you, Luke. What are you up to next?
What am I up to next? Well, still living in virtual production land, but I've been toying around with the idea of like indie game, like just making
Yeah.
not giant things because I'm one person, but I think I want to start exploring that game development a little bit. I'm very, very, very into indie horror video games.
Okay,
Love that stuff. So yeah, I kind of want to explore that a little bit.
that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You'll have to send us a copy early on so we can play test it for you. Or
Yeah.
something. And Anthony, what about yourself? What are you up to next?
I am working on my first original short. So
Okay.
so far the stuff, like you saw the Star Wars thing and like Avengers, like I was as proof of concept type stuff, I was just kind of putting things together. There's a couple of shots in that reel from the short that I'm working on, which is set in a factory. It's basically a bunch of industrial robots that rebel and take over the factory. So it's 5 to 6 minutes short. I'm about a third of the way through production, trying to get about 15 to 20 seconds of blocking done per week, which is like on a traditional, like on a feature film, it's like 3 to 10 seconds maybe you do, like a single animator would do per week. And so this is wildly fast. I'm trying to get the whole thing done in 4 months,
Okay,
which
Wow.
you know, we'll see how that
fingers
goes.
crossed.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. We're rooting for you.
Thank you.
And Marcella, what are you up to next?
I have some projects as generating animation for games, but and also I have some music going on, and also I'm helping the dance companies to create the choreographic content for different repurpose. So we have been shooting here a lot of motion capture. We have a lot of content that we are creating together, and but we experiment a lot also with cell phone and AI
Okay.
to be able for dance studio to be able to get their content, choreographic content, not only in theaters but also in 3Ds, in experience and also projections. I am into particles also and movements. Yes, so a lot of things going on. And also I'm teaching a little bit. I'm doing a teaching assistant for CG Pro. We are having a MetaHuman class.
Oh, cool,
Mhm.
cool.
Mhm.
So getting into all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah, mostly animation and movement. Yeah.
yeah. So, well, thank you all at home for joining us tonight. You can join us again tomorrow. There will be a workshop. Same link. Just check your email for tomorrow's workshop. And yeah, thank you all again for joining us. This has been great. Very educational. I have more. I need some of these console variables you're talking about. So yeah, thank you, and have a great night, everybody. And
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. Thank you.